Hey everybody, this is Rustin with Metalholic Magazine and Metal Nation Radio. With us today, the great Alex Wade of Whitechapel. How you doing, brother?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good.
You guys have a whole lot of stuff going on over the next month or so. I want to talk about all of that, but I was sitting here thinking while I was waiting for you to call. This is sort of melancholy chatting with you today, because it was just a few months ago I sat down on the bus with Phil, and we were talking about touring with Gwar. You guys were out with Gwar at the time, and I was supposed to talk to Dave Brockie that same day, but he was really ill. And it was sort of a strange tour for you guys, and now it's got to be a bit surreal with the passing of Brother Brockie. What's your take on all of that? What was the tour like for you, and how are you sort of feeling now? And now that we've lost Dave.
Yeah, I mean, we really had no idea what to expect going into that tour. But it ended up being one of our favorite tours that we've ever done, simply because of how amazing Dave was. He was just a really awesome guy, and he just really just wasn't a judgmental person. Even though our band is completely opposite end of the spectrum, from his band. He was just really into us. He would stand side stage and watch us every night and headbang and go crazy. And, you could tell the dude just really loved life and loved metal and, just loved music in general. And, so hearing, about the passing of him, was definitely, it was really tough, especially since we knew him, kind of on a personal level now.
Right. So from that wonderful tour you got to do with them, ostensibly, I believe that was Gwar's last tour, official tour. Do you have a good odorous story to share from that tour?
Going into that tour, we really had no idea what to expect, and, I never expected him to really kind of grasp onto us as much as he did, but, there were several nights where, he'd be standing side stage rocking out, and he used to always do this thing. I don't know. I never really asked him why he did it, but whenever he would stand side stage and watch us, he would always wear a ski mask like a bank robber, and and he would just sit there with the ski mask on, rocking out with his shirt off. And I don't know. Like I said, he was just a crazy dude, and he just loved life, and he loved metal and rocking out. And it was always funny, just playing a live show and then looking over stage left and seeing Brockie there with the ski mask on, rocking out.
That's hilarious. God. Yeah. Great guy. So sad to have lost him so young. So let us talk about the now. The new album, Our Endless War, comes out on April 29th through Metal Blade. You guys really sort of spread your wings on 2012's self-titled release. Where did you find the evolution of the band taking you on this record?
I really feel like it's a progression from self-titled. I believe on self-titled, we kind of just decided, screw trying to write quote-unquote deathcore music or whatever. We just really kind of stopped caring about, writing what people expected us to write. And, we just wrote a metal album. We just focused on, we were just like, we don't really care about sounding like one certain subgenre of metal. Like, we're just going to write a cohesive metal album. And, I think on the 2012 self-titled record, we kind of set out to do that. And this record, Our Endless War, is definitely just an expansion of that. We went in just pretty much, we did exactly what we did on self-titled as far as the writing process and the recording process goes. And, so I definitely feel like it's kind of like self-titled on steroids.
Right. Well, and Phil had called this, and this was back when you guys were originally writing some of this stuff, he had called this your darkest album yet, said it sort of spanned the spectrum musically more so than previous efforts. There's definitely new nuances to my ears. In fact, when the title track, essentially, there's almost a little speed thrashiness going on there, a little hardcore in there, right out the gate on that title track.
Yeah, there's definitely some new influences, and, I feel like it's almost like, as we tour with different bands, like we kind of pick up, different influences, just from being on the road and stuff like that. I mean, we've been touring with like Slayer and Hatebreed and, a bunch of great iconic metal bands. So, you can definitely hear, those kind of thrashy and more hardcore influences on this record.
Right. Now, prior to the self-titled record, your albums sort of always had themes running through them, and last time that was not the case. What about this record? Is there a bit of a theme this time?
I think there is maybe a little bit more of a theme, but not too much. I mean, Phil kind of just does his own thing. He writes the lyrics and comes up with like the concepts for all the songs and stuff like that. But the general theme is, from the title "Our Endless War," and it kind of has like a double meaning. It's a little bit like a little representative of the band, as the band is kind of like, our constant battle that, that we're fighting, and to be on tour and to be recording and, just what it takes to be in a band, to be away from your loved ones for so long and stuff like that. But then also Phil kind of gave it a double meaning in that a lot of the song's subject matter is just like humanity in itself, always, in a constant battle. It's always kind of a push-pull thing, whether it be like government type stuff or actual war and, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, this is a really scary time. I worry about my grandkids and what this country will be like for them, when I'm gone and everything. But of course, we've gone through that through all eras. In the 30s, we thought the end of everything was coming. We thought that again in the 60s. Here we are now, and it seems like everything's fallen apart again, but we're still trudging on.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the one song, Worship the Digital Age. It kind of, plays into that, as humanity advances, we become more reliant on technology, and one day that's going to fail, and, all that kind of stuff. So.
Well, it's an interesting concept, too, because technology, as wonderful as it is, I mean, look what bands can use it for now, to do so many things that would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars for time in the studio. Now you can literally make an album on your computer if you need to. So, but by the same token, I think it's made everybody so disparate and far apart from each other. I mean, you got families who actually bother to sit at a dinner table still sitting there playing on their cell phones while they're eating dinner,
Yeah, absolutely. And that's definitely, what that song portrays too.
But now I've always sort of wondered, because when you're not on a theme or a concept album, how important a role do you think sequencing plays on metal albums? And not just the track listing, because I was talking to Steve from Lillian Axe a couple of years ago. He, literally spent hours trying to figure out exactly how many seconds of silence between every song. And, how big a deal do you think sequencing is, making sure the right song is in the right place on the album, the space between, all that stuff?
Oh, it's a huge deal. It's all about the flow of the record and stuff. I can say we definitely racked up quite a bit of a mastering bill on this record just from the gaps in the spaces, because they would send a version and it would be like, there's too much silence right there. Like, I need you to shorten that because, it can just really kill the whole vibe. Like 1 or 2 seconds of too much silence between songs, can really kill the whole vibe because you're listening to one song and then that song cuts off and then you're expecting the next one to come in. And if it's like even a second off, you're like, it doesn't really feel right. So, we definitely had to go back and forth a lot, to get, the right feel for the record. And then, aside from the spacing, the actual track listing is very important too. We sat down for, hours ourselves, just listening to the songs and listening to the beginnings and the ends of them. And, we would take the demo songs and actually like open them up in, iTunes or whatever and like play the beginning of one song and then play the end of one song and then play the beginning of another song and the end of that song. And, just go back and forth to see which songs actually sounded the best, like going in and out of each other.
Just another one of the battles in your endless war. There you go. Nice tie-in. So now you guys went back to Mark Lewis on this album. What is the connection there that works so well for you guys?
He did the drum engineering on our 2010 record, A New Era of Corruption, and we got along with him really well. And when it came time to do self-titled, we had heard a couple of records that he had done full production on. I think he had done some for Black Dahlia Murder and Devil Driver. And we really liked how those records sounded. And we were like, you know what, we'll just give him a shot. Like, we'll let him do the whole record this time. And it came out awesome. Self-titled, I feel like, is one of our best-sounding CDs. It was up to that point. And, and it was just such a good time working with him. He really just kind of felt like another member of the band, with his input and, how easy it was how he got what we were going for, like as far as tonally, like guitar tones and drum tones and everything. Like he understood exactly what we needed without us really even having to tell him. So, it was just kind of a no-brainer for this CD to just, go back and do it the exact same way that we did on Self-Titled, because it turned out so well.
Yeah, I've been in, I was in bands back when I was a teenager, which seems like another lifetime ago. And we always had like two guitarists, and it was sometimes difficult to decide who was going to do what and choreograph all that. But you guys have three guitar players. How do you choreograph the parts on records and live and everything with three guitarists?
On record, we actually just record, whoever wrote the riff records it. So, if somebody wrote a whole song, then they'll record that entire song. But they're like, Our Endless War, the title track, that actually has riffs from all three of us, from me, Ben, and Zach. So on that song, all three of us that tracked parts on it. So I think it's kind of cool, because there's some songs that, for the average listener, they probably can't really tell. But for me, I understand, that the three of us all have different playing styles, and I can actually hear that difference. So, it's really cool to be able to hear the difference in playing, between songs, or even, in one song. And live, me and Zach are the rhythm players that are panned left and right. And then Ben is the lead guitarist who's panned up the middle. So that way, whenever we're doing rhythms, they sit on the outside of the mix, whereas Ben, if he's playing leads or something, it'll be right up the middle.
Nice. I was really kind of surprised that you guys aren't doing Mayhem this year. It seemed like the fitting time for you guys to jump back on a Mayhem tour. You are, however, getting ready to head out on tour in May with Devil Driver and Carnifex, as well as a few dates this month with Carnifex. How much of the new album can we look forward to hearing on these tours?
Yeah, we were gunning for Mayhem too, but sometimes it just doesn't work out, financially and stuff. When they have a lot of bigger bands on there, it eats up a lot of the budget and stuff like that. So,
well, plus your record label didn't buy a stage for the tour.
Exactly. And then Devil Driver ended up not getting an offer too. They were gunning for it as well. So we just decided, after we both didn't get it, we were like, well, screw it, we'll do our own tour. So, we teamed up together and decided to do the co-headliner. And we'll definitely be playing a lot of new songs off of that. We're doing this little 10-day run with Carnifex for the release of the CD. And we're going to be playing probably 3 new songs on that. So on the Devil Driver tour, we'll probably at least play 5 new songs.
I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, because I interviewed Scott Lewis not long ago. What were your thoughts on the new Carnifex album?
I haven't really heard that much of it, but from what I have heard, it's really great. I think it's a strong comeback for them. I know they took like a little 8-month hiatus or whatever to kind of regroup and, refocus the band. And, they re-signed with Nuclear Blast, and I think it's, really awesome. It's definitely like a new life for that band. And, it's really cool because, one of our first tours, we played with them in California. So, we've kind of been, I guess friends with them, for a really long time now, I guess probably about 7 years. So, it's cool to see them, get back out there and get, and do it. And, they did their record with Mark Lewis as well. And, he did a really killer job on it too. So,
right. So when I had a chance to talk with Phil last winter, we were talking about vaping, and it's like everybody in the band seems to be vaping. You were the one person he didn't mention. Is that something that you got into, or do you have your own bad habit?
I don't vape. I enjoy a beer like everybody else, but I don't vape. It's great for Phil though. He's been a long time smoker. He smoked for probably since he was 13 or 14. He started real young. And, I've watched him personally try to quit about 10 times. And the only thing that's worked was the vape. So, it gave him that same kind of feeling that a cigarette does. So right. He was actually able to quit smoking off of it. And he hasn't had a cigarette in probably 8 months or something like that. So. Oh,
good. So he stayed true to it. That's awesome to hear. So by way of getting to know you just a little bit better, give us 3 albums that changed your life.
I would definitely say Deftones' Self-Titled is probably one of them. That was the first time I'd really heard aside from bands like Korn and Limp Bizkit and stuff, that was the first time I'd heard like tuned down 7-string. That was the first album that Steph started using 7 strings on. And, I think that album's in like G sharp or something like that. And, I just heard, how low it was tuned and how menacing it sounded. And I was just like, wow, that's, really amazing. And I guess another one would be Meshuggah's Nothing. That's a really amazing album. Again, that's the first time I like really heard, that kind of like low tuned single string, kind of sound. And, I'd never really heard anything like that, when that album came out. And then another one would be Slipknot Self-Titled as well. I was probably, I guess, in high school when that record came out. And again, I'd never really heard anything like that. It was just so angry and so aggressive. And I had just started getting into metal really at that point. When I was going up through middle school and stuff, I was a little punk kid. Like I skateboarded and listened to like NoFX and Lagwagon and Pennywise and stuff like that. And then when I got into high school, I started getting into heavier music like Slipknot and Hatebreed and all that stuff. And then towards the end of high school, like when I started to graduate, is when I got into more death metal stuff like Suffocation and Cannibal Corpse.
Nice segue there, because I recall Slipknot being the highlight of the last Mayhem tour for you. If you guys were ever to cover a Slipknot track, what would it be?
Man, I don't know. I would say probably People Equal Shit, because that song is definitely just very, violent and aggressive, and it's really fast. It has a lot of blast beats in it and stuff, which I feel like, would really suit our sound, so...
Nice, because that's exactly the song Phil picked. You guys have got to make like a covers EP just for fun.
Do a Slayer cover too. So.
There you go. All right, so our pointless question on the way out of here. You guys spend a lot of time on the tour bus anyway, so is there a television show or series that you're like totally addicted to?
Right now, personally, it's Bob's Burgers, the cartoon show that comes on Fox. I don't really watch that many cartoons, I guess, but I don't know, that show's just freaking hilarious. So the season 3 just came on Netflix, so we've been wearing that out.
Awesome. Alex Wade of Whitechapel, the new album Our Endless War, out April 29th on Metal Blade, going to be touring with Carnifex, and then in May, Devil Driver and Carnifex, going to be a great, great tour. The new album sounds fantastic, brutal and heavy as always. Alex, thanks so much for taking the time. We're looking forward to seeing you on the road.
So no problem at all. Thank you.
Talk to you soon, brother.